Yes, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite football updates channel. It's a pleasure to be back with you on this beautiful Sunday night. We are 40 minutes late, apologetically. So do accept my sincere apologies for being late today. But nonetheless, like I keep saying, better late than never. So we are here, and I hope you will indulge me as we go through tonight's broadcast, in which we'll be talking about Arsenal's defeat against Manchester City and what the implications are in the rest of the season for the Premier League title race. So we'll be talking about that and much more in this broadcast. So for those of you that will be joining us, I hope you've had a wonderful weekend. I hope you'll get to enjoy the conversation. It's a Sunday. We do not do Sunday morning broadcast, so this is our only broadcast for the Sunday. So that's why it is important that we do not miss it, regardless of the circumstances, late or otherwise. So yeah, please forgive me for being late, but I'm here. Better late than never is the adage that I make reference to, and I say that you'll allow me have our audios tested just to make sure everything checks out before we proceed any further in this particular broadcast. So, really, anyways, it's been a long day. It's been a long day, I must acknowledge. First of all, I say that as a football fan, but also for the usual suspects. By now, I'm sure you know why it is been a long day. In one way or for one reason or the other. Anyways, okay, just trying to have my audios tested. I think we're good, by the way, because so far, I mean, Aston Villa, Sunderland, what a game. 7 goals goal hour. When it was 3-1, I gave up and I was thinking, it's as good as done. What's the worst that could happen to Aston Villa? But nonetheless, I think it will matter less how they got the win than the fact that they got the win, given what it implies in the context for European football for next season. So there's that. Anyways, we'll begin on one note. For those of you that are just joining us, my name is Robert Kesakos, and welcome to the Football Tribe UG channel. I do join you from Kampala, Uganda, where it's 17 minutes to midnight. Yes, 17 minutes to midnight. So do let me know down in the comment section. I'll be reading each and every one of your comments. Let me know where you're joining us from, what team you support. It is a football channel, so we are talking about good but not good enough as Arsenal fall against Manchester City and things in that line. So if you're a football fan, do let me know. If you're an Arsenal fan out there, do let me know what you made of your team's performance. Hey, my name is Ivy. I'm new to your thing. Haven't seen you online. Thank you so much, Ivy Grace. Where are you joining us from, Ivy Grace? Good to have you on the channel. It's a pleasure to see you. Do me one absolute honor and favor and like the broadcast, but also consider subscribing to the channel. So, like I said, for us, there is only one place to start as football fans, and that's a defeat for Arsenal away to Manchester City. I think it is as painful as it comes for for Arsenal. And I could see the Arsenal away fans applaud their team. I just subscribed to you. Thank you so much. Much appreciated, Ivy. Every action that you take to support this channel is much appreciated. And the thing I've loved about being online in this content creation thing and doing the thing that I love the most is that every now and then you appreciate the kindness of people who sometimes are not even football fans that will join you and support you, that will give you the minutes of time, listen to you talk about what you love the most. And I do not take that for granted every single day. And I think I've been blessed to meet some really, really incredible people on the streets. So anyways, like I was saying, at full time, the Arsenal away fans did applaud their team. I think just like I appreciated their effort today. They appreciated the performance they saw. They appreciated the energy that the team gave, the dedication that they had towards earning a point in that game, towards trying to win that game. Unfortunately for them, good is not good enough. Like I've said this, I said this about Barcelona. My friend Pedri got so much pissed. I do not, and he's been AWOL ever since then. sometimes good is not good enough. You're going to fight, you'll do everything in your power, but if you do let go of the fine margins, such big stages, big moments are decided by small margins. They're decided by key moments, and that's what defined the game in favor of Manchester City. I will get to speak about the potential red card that everybody seems to be uptaken about regarding Gabriel Magalhaes over Brad Erling Haaland. I'll give you my views on that. You're very cool. So I'm going to stay on here a couple of minutes, like 45. Thank you so much. What's your friend's name? My friend is called Pedri. He's from Spain. He joins me from Spain. He's a usual suspect. But I think ever since last week on Thursday, he's not been back to the channel simply because we disagreed on my opinion versus his opinion regards to the Barcelona Atletico Madrid game. Mosca Joshua says, how I wish we had been playing like this before. Exactly. That is what I said. As soon as the final whistle was blown and Arsenal had lost, of course, disappointingly so, my question was, where was this kind of energy? Where was this kind of performance against FC Bournemouth? Regardless of the players that, the change in players that may have been on the pitch itself, the question was this kind of effort, because if you're an Arsenal fan, it's painful that you have lost the game. It's disheartening that you're seeing a Premier League title slip away. Okay, you're very blessed. Thank you so much, Ivy. You're seeing a Premier League title that for which the table you've laid for literally for so long slip away, and that's the painful bit, perhaps. Or given that this is possibly the fourth time it is going to happen in a space of 4 years. That's, I think, the very painful part for the Arsenal. But if you are an honest Arsenal fan, I think you will appreciate today's performance and realize that you are just not lucky on the day, because I saw the effort, I saw the energy, I saw the turn up, I saw Arsenal trying not to play in a conservative manner. I saw them not look timid in terms of going after this game. Now, like I said, it's the fine margins that gave it or tilted it in Manchester City's favor. Of course, it was already perhaps in their favor because they were the more confident side coming into this game. It was a home fixture, so all that is an advantage. And then more importantly, having not lost against Arsenal since 2015 was another confidence booster coming into this particular game, thinking, it's ours to lose, Okay. Thank you so much, Ivy, for the little time you've dedicated to be with us tonight. It's been much appreciated. So true, and we had good chances. Hit the woodwork. Exactly. Twice Arsenal hit the woodwork, and then you have a case of a missed chance, and perhaps two missed chances, not in the sense of being poor at taking those chances, but just because out of sheer bad luck. For example, that late header by Kai Havertz, it's only a couple of inches above the crossbar. If it's perhaps 3-4 inches or even 2 inches below that, probably it goes into the back of the net. Pedro is here with us. I was just talking about him, that we haven't seen him ever since Thursday, and that I did miss him. But Ivy, that's the Pedro I was telling you about. Although he's just come on briefly and he's saying goodbye already. He says you're a loser. But I'm glad to see him back anyways. So if it goes 2 inches below, maybe it goes in. And then he had the first chance again, Kai Havertz, that for which you ought to praise the prowesses of Gianluigi Donnarumma. Sometimes we ought not to blame the player for not scoring, but appreciate the goodness of the goalkeeper who makes the save, So that simply was it. Then you had Eberechi Eze, in a sheer tiny bit of space, finding the gap to take that shot, I think, off of his left foot, and it hit the base of the upright and comes across the line, and it does not go in. If that one goes in, the context in the game is very different, Pedro says, you missed me. That's weird because you belittled my Barcelona and disrespected them. Like I said, Pedri, it was a difference of opinion. If you can appreciate it in that manner, then I'll equally appreciate it. It's simply a difference of opinion. Your view versus mine, your way of interpreting the situation versus mine. As simple as that. Nothing personal in that regard. So Joshua, I think you're right. So like I said, those fans did applaud their team's performance. You could see And Kai Havertz, I mean, the difference was, and he had the moment that reminded me of what we saw in the Carabao Cup final. Pedro, you want me to say sorry for what? For disagreeing with you? Really? It's come to that we have to apologize for disagreeing on an issue, and that's not going to be the case, really. So basically, what happened was, no, we cannot be apologizing for disagreeing on opinions, because it's not going to be the first time. It's not going to be the last time. Tomorrow we may disagree, or maybe on a different topic. It's simply that. So there's that sort of light bulb moment where Kai Havertz, again, I think in the game, similar to the Carabao Cup final, where he does not take his chance, and then there's that sort of foul moment, or depending on how you want to see it, between him and Kushanov, when it's shoulder to shoulder. Again, I looked at that moment and I'm thinking to myself, Kai Havertz, you're stronger than that. Yes, of course, when you get sort of knocked up a bit, when you're in motion, or when you're having that bit of a run, you do not have perhaps the gravity to keep you up on your feet, but you must be doing more. You must be looking. The moment you hear the defender, you must looking to be protecting that ball. And because it's shoulder to shoulder, it's not given as a foul. And I, for one, I've seen a lot of Arsenal fans thinking, oh, that should be a foul. Kushanov is the last man, it should be a red card. I did not see it that way, I thought, yes, they have to challenge for the ball. It's shoulder to shoulder. He nudges him over. And I mean, if that's going to be a foul, and therefore, because he's the last man, subsequent, meaning a red card, because it's not even inside the box, but he's the last man, I'm thinking to myself, where is the game going to go if we're going to be giving those as fouls, So basically, it's that, So, okay, fine. I give you another chance. Okay. Anyway, Atletico lost yesterday. So the UEFA Champions League semi-final is loser versus loser. So be it. So for me, in a nutshell, I was really, really appreciative of the performance. I do not think there's a single Arsenal player that I would single out to say, you let your teammates down. And perhaps that's the beauty of it. David Raya had his early scare in the game, and I love that he sort of cut out that sort of complacency out of the game for the remainder of it. Two, they came with a strategy to beat Manchester City. Did they execute the plan to perfection? It looked that way, apart from being clinical with their chances. And like I said, for some of those chances, you ought to give credit where it is due, particularly to Gianluigi Donnarumma for keeping out that chance by Kai Havertz. For Ebeleche Eze, it hits the base of the upright. Gabriel Magalhaes has a moment where he hits the base of the upright. You cannot fault them for hitting the base of the upright. That's now the game of fine margins. That's the moment between luck and a lack of it. You remember Antoine Semenyo when he was going on to score, and then he slips, unfortunately, and David Raya collects the ball, in the first instance. Then on the second instance, again, Antoine Semenyo is going through. David Raya is sort of caught between going for it and staying back. He has that bit of a moment of a hesitation because it's sort of a 50-50 ball. But as then Semenyo takes a heavy touch, and as he tries to come out for it, he sort of backslides. And fortunately for him, the ball came to him. So that's a bit of luck. You're going to need that in a game of that magnitude, So I found that a very important topic. Okay, Pedri says, I hate Arsenal. That's fine. I'm happy Guardiola won. Please comment on my two videos. That is Venom Tony. Hi, Venom Tony. Thank you for joining us. Good to have you. Now, the other key moment, and it was a game of physical battles, particularly between Erling Haaland and Gabriel Magalhaes. It was sort of that 50-50. Of course, Haaland, in the end, got the better of it when he had his moment to score. But again, when you reflect on the moment of that goal, first of all, I think that's the one moment that you reflect on the game where Arsenal lost their concentration. And when you watch that particular moment, Martin Odegaard is directing Gabriel Martinelli to go mark Nico O'Reilly. But because Gabriel Martinelli hesitates and instead simply occupies the sort of the space in between. When Gianluca Donnarumma picks up the ball, he throws it to Nico O'Reilly, and he has a free run in midfield. So the sort of that free run in midfield, it ends up in the box. Then you have a moment where you had, I think it was William Saliba, and I don't remember who the other was. When Jeremy Doku has the ball, they're simply marking space. They are there physically, but defensively, in terms, you see, defending is something that you actively do. It's not about occupying the space of a defender. So they have that lapse in concentration, and then Nico O'Reilly passes the ball to Brad Erling Haaland, and bang, it's 2-1. So then there came a crucial moment about what people have defined as a headbutt. Unless and on this one, I need to be educated, because in my personal interpretation or observation, that's not a headbutt. If I do reflect on what happened between Zinedine Zidane and Marco Materazzi in the World Cup final of 2006, I do not define that as a headbutt. First of all, there's been a physical duel between the two guys, and they've pulled each other in all sorts of directions. Now, having pulled each other in all sorts of directions, Brad Erling Haaland's undershirt is being torn and etc. You have that sort of snafu. Then it comes to this moment, because they've had a physical duel between themselves, they put each other's heads in their faces. And then Gabriel Magalhaes pushes Brad Erling Haaland's head with his, when their heads are already touching. And now for me, that's not headbutting. However, had there been a tiny bit of space in between the two, and then Gabriel Magalhaes motions back, that's headbutting. That's how I define it. Like I said, I'll appreciate the difference in opinion. I appreciate being educated for those of you that have a different version of it, but that's how I interpreted it. And I think Brad Erling Haaland was speaking about this in the aftermath of the game, and he says he does not think it's a red card. And so I am thinking, why is a certain part of the world thinking this should be a red card? Why is that? Of course, that is the case is because some people have defined it as such that it is headbutting. So I'm trying to find that particular quote by Brad Erling Haaland about that exact moment where he talks about this, about the headbutt. Okay, yes, Haaland on Gabriel. If I fell on the floor, which I will not do unless someone really attacks me, I think maybe it would be a red card. I'm not sure. I will not fall on the floor and as easy like this. Yellow card for me, I do not know why. He comes up to my face, So they're already face to face when he pushes him. Okay, let me get to some of your comments because, all right. Okay. No, I've already read that one. Pedro says no, do not beg. Okay. About Erling Haaland is better. I feel like Gabriel was not focusing on the ball. He wanted to play WWE. Okay. Violet. Hi, Violet. Hello to you too. Good evening. Mosiba says Zubi too seemed tired and was no longer effective in the first half. Again, I think we've discussed the issue of Martin Zubimendi. For me, the issue of Martin Zubimendi, it's not that he's not good enough, but he has this cumulative fatigue that he carries with him. And I've said it time and again that he's going to look very good in about 65 minutes. And after that, you're going to see it that he's vividly tired. Now, it's upon to the manager, one, to protect him and say, okay, I need to make a substitution and withdraw him. And eventually, Mikel Arteta made the substitution. Unfortunately for him, I think it came a little late than it should have actually happened, I think that would be my view. Mr. Tribe, do you want me to buy you a coffee? Pedri, I think I've been honest about that. Any day, anytime, I'd welcome the cup of coffee. But thank you for even thinking of offering. So when you look at the changes, when Mikel Arteta makes the Martin Zubimendi change, he makes it in the 84th minute. In my view, I'd wanted him to bring on Christian Norgard because at some point in the game, I don't know if you guys noticed, what I was noticing was that because both teams were not hell-bent on keeping that ball in the middle part of the pitch, They look to exploit each other on the wings. There comes a point when that space is empty, and that's where and I kept saying that for as long as you leave a vacuum in that spot of the pitch, somebody is going to occupy it or somebody is going to utilize it. So basically, that's what's happened. When you look at the second half, Arsenal had this sort of mentality or tactic where they were going man to man. And man to man can be a good thing until one of your men is beaten. Because once they are beaten, then what that implies is that whoever is closest is going to be pulled out of position to come and track this player with the opponent with the ball. So you have a moment where you have yards of space in that midfield, and it happened on many occasions. So in my opinion, I was thinking, maybe bring on Christian Nørgaard, let him patrol this sort of empty space in the midfield. Let him keep patrol of that. Of course, in Redson to Declan Rice, because he was doing a lot of running, because I felt it was space that is going to be occupied. Now that Zubimendi does not have the legs to keep patrolling that area, bring on fresh legs of Christian Nørgaard to do that job for you. Task him with that, And that's why when Gianluigi Donnarumma throws that ball, and of course Gabriel Martinelli is already beaten, there's no player cutting across in that midfield to come and provide the cover. You guys can go back and watch that specific moment in the game or where the goal comes from. You'll notice that there's that space, and the question is, who is going to, okay, we have Martinelli beaten. Let's fault him for what it is, that he did not heed to Martin Odegaard's advice to go and mark out Nick O'Reilly before they throw him the ball, So really, it's such a key moment in the game. And I thought that's where you would have needed the running legs of a fresh, let's say, Christian Nørgaard, That's where you would have needed them. But because Mikel Arteta does not make the change, of course, he reads the game perhaps a bit differently. Based on what we are seeing, he does not make that sort of, he does not make that sort of change. And basically, it comes down to that, So I thought it was a key moment in the game that you felt that Arsenal must have felt that they let themselves down in terms of staying alert, because you ought to stay alert, So in that space, William Saliba and Martin Zubimendi, you can see they let what's his name, Nico O'Reilly, control the ball and pass it. I think it was Rodrigo Cascade that was trying to intercept it before it goes through to Brad Haaland, and they go into score. So really, I thought that was a key moment in the game. Okay, fine. I give you. Okay, no, I already read that. Joshua says yes, Zubi isn't bad. He was just exhausted, but Arteta took a while to sub him off. Exactly. You remember what cost him the Carabao Cup final? That hesitation to bring on Carafiori for Piero Hincapié, because today, the way he did the half-time substitution for Martinelli or to withdraw Noni Madueke is what he needed to do in the Carabao Cup final to withdraw Piero Hincapié for Ricardo Carafiori. Then as he signals to make those changes, that's when Arsenal concede the second goal. And by the time he comes on, it's 2-0. And it was a little too late for him. You do not deserve it. You're a bad boy today. No coffee for you. It's all right, Pedri. Oh, yes, I did observe that. Oh, you did? Oh, wow. Okay, so basically, so for you guys, what do you think defined the game? Do you think, for me, I personally think Manchester City was slightly better. And slightly better in the sense that they took their chances. It simply boiled down to that. And for as long as you take those chances and you're clinical with them, you're the winner, basically. And the reason that's why I tell you that Arsenal was not that poor, even when you look at the XG, I'm not one to believe in it so much, but Arsenal's XG was slightly better than that of Man City. So it shows you the sort of performance. It's in a way indicative of the performance. If you needed to reflect, go back to yesterday's victory for Manchester United against Chelsea. Chelsea, by a mile, were the better team. Unfortunately for them, they could not find the back of the net, and that's how they lost the game, because Manchester United had one shot on goal and they make it work and they won the game. Basically, that's what it boiled down to. And Chelsea were in a way unlucky, because I think thrice they hit the woodwork. You had William Estaval, you had Liam Delap, and I don't remember who the other was who hit the crossbar, So basically, that's what it boiled down to. So you look back at some of those moments for Arsenal, what you would describe to be defining moments, and they did not go their way. And basically, that's what separated the two sides, because Man City had 1.41 as XG, Arsenal had 1.53. 5 shots on target for Man City, 3 for Arsenal. Off target, 5 for Man City, 3 for Arsenal. Man City edging possession 59% to 41%. Now, I do not think there are only a handful of spells during the course of the game where you felt, oh, Arsenal being pinged back. But the way they recovered from those situations was much, much better than they performed or they did in the Carabao Cup final that they eventually lost by 2 goals to nil. So for me, I looked at as an improved performance. My only disappointment was, where was this kind of performance against Sporting CP, against FC Bournemouth, And I was also reflecting on it and thinking, if they come out like this against Atletico de Madrid, they're going to have a chance. But if they revert to their old self of playing the way they played against FC Bournemouth, or like they played against Sporting CP in the first leg, despite winning by 1-0, then their chances are going to be very, very limited. Because Atletico de Madrid may be living, maybe still wallowing in their disappointments of missing out on the piece of silverware, because they got beat after a 2-2 draw in post-match penalties. I think, was it 4-3 on post-match penalties to lose the Copa del Rey trophy to Real Sociedad yesterday. You sort of think that they have players that can hurt you. Julian Alvarez, Alexander Soloth, Alex Baina, Marcos Llorente, Ademola Lookman. Very, very good team. So if you do, and then the other thing, by the way, let's talk about the substitutions. Eberechi Eze withdrawing him, I thought that was a blunder by Mikel Arteta. And you see, when I'm making a case or my submissions or arguments about these things, I give myself the benefit of the doubt that there is a reason as to why Mikel Arteta is the coach or head coach or manager, and I am not. But the one thing I always want us to acknowledge between you and I is that there are things we identify in the game and interpret or make calls upon or judgment upon, and we are right in those judgments. Really, managers get them wrong. As much as Pep Guardiola is probably the greatest manager of his generation, it's not to say that he's been perfect. He's had his imperfections, where in some cases he's overthought games. Most recent case in point is go back to the Real Madrid first leg where they lose by 3-0, and ask yourself why you put Savinho on the pitch on that day. So that's a case in point. Now, fast forward to today, Eberechi Eze looked as, because he was drifting away from his left wing where he was playing predominantly to sort of move into midfield and cause those overloads in midfield. And whereas he did not have many chances fall to him, he has that moment where he strikes the ball in a tiny little bit of space to beat Gianluigi Donnarumma, but unfortunately for him, he hits the base of the upright. So you have a player that is giving you that, and you decide that you're withdrawing him. I found that suspect. I found that disappointing, or a poor judgment call. Not in the player that he brought on for him, but in the player he took off. Actually, for me, at that point in the game, I was demanding for Martin Odegaard to be withdrawn. In fact, my earlier suggestion had been initially that, because there came a moment where Manchester City were dominant with the ball, and I was thinking to myself, if you introduce Christian Nogard to help Martin Zubimendi in midfield, then push Declan Rice a little further forward and have that bit of compactness in midfield, I know it would have been conservative. I know that. But I made that suggestion thinking that if you go through that phase, then the person then you withdraw is Martin Zubimendi and then bring Leandro Trossard to go back in the number sort of 10 role in that pocket that Martin Odegaard was occupying, and then retreat, have Declan Rice retreat a bit back. That was my first interpretation of it. But then he decided otherwise. And I'm like, okay, you brought on Leandro Trossard, but taking off Eberechi Eze, that was another light bulb moment to say, I think Mikel Arteta is getting this one wrong here in terms of that particular decision, So, and I like it that you guys also made a similar observation. We'll speak about, will you speak about something else? This is too boring. Goodbye. Okay, Pedri. Arteta's sub 2 did define the game, especially that of Eze. Pedri, we talk about this not because we want to talk about Arsenal all day, but it's arguably been the biggest game of the season. It's a potential title decider, not the ultimate, but a potential title decider. And we know what the implications of that are, that now that Manchester City have beaten Arsenal, they have moved within 3 points behind Arsenal. Really, they have a game in hand. Should they win that game in hand, we know where they're going to end up. Yes, Arsenal have a slightly better goal difference, but it is very slight. It's a one goal. It's only one goal. In other words, all Manchester City need to do is to go and beat up against Crystal Palace, quote unquote, for the game in hand by 2-0, and suddenly they'll have a plus 38, 1 goal better than Arsenal, and suddenly they're above them. But before they even play that game in hand, they have a game midweek against Burnley. Now, that's a game that you would bet your hand on that they are going to win. I mean that literally. I retain the reservation that anything can happen in football. But I do not expect Manchester City to lose against Burnley, in midweek. In any case, I have a feeling Burnley are going to be obliterated, So they have that. That game is going to be played on Wednesday. Yes, Manchester City will be playing away at Turf Moor, So they win that with more than a goal, and they're going to be above Arsenal. And the significance of losing this game, or this game in general, is that it simply put the trophy in Manchester City's hands now. We have been saying all along, it's for Arsenal to lose. Now, it's suddenly for Manchester City to lose. Why? Because this goal difference that people are making reference to is that thin. It's only one goal, So it's such a very, very big moment in the season. And the disappointment for the Arsenal fans is not because they lost today, it's because they see the Premier League title slipping away. They have been through these emotions before, and really anything can still happen in losing that game, because they knew. That's why they really, really tried to fight for at least a point. Unfortunately for them, they did not get it. But they knew that it's dangerous to put it in Manchester City's hands. And that's where it's gone. Yes, Mikel Arteta says we are 3 points ahead. They have a game in hand. They're going to play that game in midweek. And by the end of the week, I think next weekend, Manchester City will be playing, I think, in the FA Cup. They're going to be playing in the semi-finals of the FA Cup against Southampton. Chelsea will be playing against Leeds. So do not expect to see Manchester City play next weekend, as well as Chelsea, as well as Leeds United. That's why you have midweek games, That's why you have these midweek games between Brighton and Chelsea, between Bournemouth and Leeds, and then Burnley at home against Manchester City. That's why you have those fixtures to cover for that gap. So by the time we get to the weekend, rest assured Manchester City are going to be above Arsenal. At least I anticipate that. Then Arsenal will be playing at home against Newcastle. If Arsenal win that game, they go above Manchester City. Will Man City have their game in hand? But then, what if Arsenal do not win? Today, I was looking at Mikel Arteta's performance in the month of April, and he really, really struggles. I think it's only in 2024, in the month of April, where he did not lose many points. He only lost 3 points in about 6 games, I think, played. That's the 2-0 loss against Aston Villa. And if you do remember, in the 2023-2024 season, that's the point when he lost the Premier League title. That 2-0 loss to Aston Villa. That's the point he loses the Premier League title, because eventually it's Manchester City with 91 points, Arsenal with 89 points. If they win that game, they finish at 92 points. And Man City finished 1 point behind them. So that's the story. Perhaps that's the painful remembrance about this particular one. So, unfortunately, Arsenal players have not stood tall. Whereas there are things that Mikel Arteta could have done better in terms of his judgment, I really, really can't blame this defeat on him as a manager, really. I would simply say the players were good, but not good enough on the day to earn a point. The game strategy was okay. The implementation was fairly okay, but not to perfection. Where was the perfection in? In not scoring that second goal, in not getting that third goal possibly, So, game of fine margins. It simply boiled down to that, Anyways, so in the other results of the day, Liverpool managed to win their Merseyside derby against Everton away, their first away game to the Hill-Dixon Stadium. They managed to win that one by 2-1. And Mohamed Salah, against the run of play, scored because what's his name? Iliman Ndiaye had scored a goal, but then it was ruled out. And Everton were by far the better side in that first half, even though Liverpool finished the stronger by the tail end of the first half. So Mohamed Salah scores in the 29th minute and it's 1-0. Then in the second half, Beto scores and it's 1-1. I think Georgi Mamadashvili was forced off through injury. So he gets forced off and they have to make a goalkeeping substitution. But then, in the dying moments of the game, literally with the last kick of the game, Virgil van Dijk scores and it's 2-1, and there's no recovering from that. I do not know. There are not many things in football that are very painful, but conceding a late goal in the manner in which Everton did, that is a dagger in the heart. First of all, I appreciated the performance of Idris Gana Gueye, the way he applied himself in that midfield. James Garner, what a revelation of a player he's been this season. Dwight McNeil did not have a very, very good performance or a bright day in office. Beto, yes, he scored, but he could have done better because there's a chance that he squandered. He's all through on goal. All he has is to keep his attempt on target and perhaps beat Georgi Mamadashvili in goal. But in trying to place it, he basically places it to the corner flag as opposed to the bottom corner, But while he missed that chance, he had also forced Georgi Mamadashvili into a brilliant save. And that was very early in the game, in around the 6th minute. Mamadashvili with a brilliant save. So, but like I said, games are of fine margins. Games like derbies, oftentimes clear-cut chances or half chances are going to fall far between. And you must take that chance. And you must take those chances. If you do not take them, you're going to be penalized on the other side. It's basically, I think it's defined a good section of the weekend. You go back to the game I made reference to of Chelsea Manchester United. Man United were almost toothless in that game. But that one moment of Bruno Fernandes connecting with Cunha defined the game. And that's how Man United won it. A very, very crucial game, winning for the first time in 6 years at Stamford Bridge. And Kobbie Mainoo, what a player. But that game is not the point of discussion. The point of discussion is the Merseyside derby. So basically, for all the good that Everton did, they just did not find the back of the net as much as they should have. As much as they should have. And because for as long as the game remains square or level, you are bound it's bound to be snatched away from your hands. And basically, that's what is happened on this evening, that the game was snatched out of Everton's hands. Because when the moments counted for them, they did not take their chances. They did not take their chances. So they win the Merseyside Derby, and it's a huge win. It's a huge win in terms of the pursuit of Champions League football going into next season. Unfortunately, this further puts Chelsea behind them because Chelsea lost. And guess who they lost to? Man United, who they are competing with for a top 5 finish to guarantee Champions League football next season. You know, Florian Wirtz struggled in that game. Alexander Isak struggled in that game. He did not have many chances. I think it wasn't until the tail end of the first half that he has his first genuine attempt on goal. And you could see, I don't really blame him, because it's not like they created him many chances and he missed them. That wasn't the case. But, you know, you look at Everton's performance and you're thinking, it's worth something. But also, this is not the first game. Go back to their 1-0 defeat against Manchester United. Benjamin Sesko scoring that one, with Cunha providing the assist. And that's the moment that decides the game. But Everton had gone toe to toe with Manchester United. But for as long as you do not take your chances, when they do fall, you're bound to be penalized on the other end. Rio Dandy says Arsenal in 7 points, in 70 points, Manchester City in 67 points. Manchester City must need to win against Burnley to be top. Exactly. You know? So for as long as it remains square, 1-1, it was bound to be decided later on. And basically that's what it was. Virgil van Dijk's header, not the best of headers, but he is in the right place at the right time, puts his head to it, and he scores. And it's 2-1. And they win it. That must be a gutting result for Evertonians. Not just because it was a home game, but because they too had a chance of fighting for European football. Not that that chance has slipped away, but at least a point would have been such a huge point in as far as the game is concerned. But unfortunately for them, it was not meant to be. Okay, moving away from the Everton game quickly, like I said, then the other game was Nottingham Forest beating Burnley by 4-1. My prediction had been a 2-0 victory for Nottingham Forest, but they made it sweet. But Morgan Gibbs-White with a hat-trick in that one, all goes in the second half, as well as Igor Jesus, while Fleming scored to give Burnley the lead. That's the thing about Burnley. You know, Burnley, this Burnley of Scott Parker is not much different from the Burnley of Vincent Kompany in 2023-2024 season. They were very good on the ball. They did a lot of things right, apart from scoring goals and defending. So they did not score enough goals and yet shipped in lots of goals. And that was their huge letdown. And eventually they got relegated. This season, it's not going to be any different. They play very good, a good brand of football, very attacking football. They look good on the ball. But if you're not scoring enough and you can't defend well enough, then what's the point? So basically, they are going to get relegated. But before, as we think of them getting relegated, those are some 3 massive points for massive points for Nottingham Forest in regards to their fight against relegation. The victory puts Nottingham Forest at 36 points. That's 3 points behind Leeds United, who at 39, Leeds won their game in the weekend by 3-0 against Wolverhampton Wanderers. Meanwhile, Wolverhampton Wanderers, I think we're only a few games away from them being confirmed as a relegated team, because I think they have 3 times 5 is what? 15. They have 15 points left to play for. And even if they were to win all their remaining 5 games, they would simply go to about, let me see, 32 points. And the 32 points is what West Ham have. So in other words, if West Ham manage to beat up against Crystal Palace tomorrow night, because they play Crystal Palace tomorrow on Monday Night Football, then Wolverhampton Wanderers will be officially relegated, because that means that they cannot rise above 18th place. You know? So that's the significance of Nottingham Forest's win. Rio Dandy says, if Arsenal comes second again, Arteta will be sacked in the end of the season, no doubt. I do not think he will be sacked, by the way. But I've said this. He's likely to resign. Why? Because I have a feeling, and it's just a gut feeling, of a question, that if you're in his position, how do you bring yourself to the composure to compete again after falling short on 4 different occasions? Because there's a couple of ifs in this particular scenario. What if he misses out the Premier League title and wins the UEFA Champions League? And I'm not saying that's what is going to happen, but if that were to be the case, I still feel that in the context of the Premier League, he will still feel no less bad about it, even if they were to win the UEFA Champions League. Do you see that the UEFA Champions League is such a big title? It would simply pass for a consolation. It would be a huge milestone if they were to win it, because it would be the first in Arsenal's history. But because of the context within the Premier League, how the season has transpired, the Champions League would be reduced to a mere consolation for the Arsenal. So, and that's where I stand to say that he will sit back and say, I just do not have it in me going again. Because what's the excuse? What different is he going to do to get it over the line the subsequent season that is not done in the last 3 seasons? This being the 4th of that. So I think those questions will link at the back of his mind as he goes through his decision. Because first of all, by the end of the season, he's going to have 1 year left to his current contract. The same way Pep Guardiola is in sort of a similar situation. On the other side, I have a feeling that if Pep Guardiola clinches this Premier League title, for which he is on en route to perhaps win the domestic treble, in a season that everybody thinks that Manchester City have not been that good because they've already won the Carabao Cup and they're into the semi-finals of the FA Cup, and you do not see any side left in there worth their salt that can really, really challenge them. Just look at Chelsea. They hammered them the other day, 3-0. You know, so I have a feeling that if Pep Guardiola were to achieve those milestones, he would equally step down and say, how about I buy out on a high? You know, that's just a sort of a school of thought that I do carry myself with in that respect. And I hope you guys will sort of see the salt in it, that perhaps it is worth it. That could be possibly that could be how it plays out, you know. Mwesigwa says, I feel like Arteta needs to leave no matter the season's outcome. That will be the feeling amongst a fair share of Arsenal fans. Unfortunately, I do not speak for them, so I cannot qualify my submission as for majority, but I think a fair share of Arsenal fans. And by the way, I've seen those with a school of thought that, and it may sound a bit odd, but indulge me here. I've seen or heard those with a school of thought that even if he were to clinch the Premier League title, he should still leave anyway. Why? They are tired of coming so close and yet so far. You know how Liverpool are not remembered so much for coming so close in 2018-2019 season? 97 points. Really, Man City won it with 98. 2021-2022 Premier League season. You remember that season? 93 points for Man City and 92 for Liverpool. Nobody remembers that because they were so close and yet so far. It's a difference of one game that possibly decides it. How many times have we seen Manchester City clinch the title on the final day? You know, on the final day. I think we have seen the script before. Go back in 2012 when they win their first Premier League title with Roberto Mancini. It's a final day win. Man United win against Sunderland. They eventually win against QPR and win it on goal difference. Then you go back to 2013, 2014. It did not go down to the wire, but it was in the last 4 or 5 games that they won the Premier League title. Then you go back to 2018, 2019 season. It goes to the wire. You go back to the 2021, 2022 Premier League season. It goes down to the wire. I think that's the season when they beat Aston Villa a 3-2 to win it. Ilkay Gundogan being with the second half masterclass in that one. You know, then you go back to the 2023-2024 Premier League season trophy. You remember they played against West Ham on the final day. I don't remember who Arsenal were playing. Well, I think Arsenal were playing Everton. You know, I stand to be corrected, but it also went to the wire. So they've done this before. They know the script, they know the route, and they just have that knack of hitting the stride. If they had done it once or twice, you would say they're lucky. But it's more or less working for it because a league season is like a marathon, like I've always said. It's a marathon. You must stay in pace. You do not give your challenger a lot of distance in between you and them, so that when it's time to take the final bend, you can hit your stride and beat them for pace. For those of you that have watched a bit of athletics, you must be knowing what I mean by that, or you at least must have seen a few marathons here and there. You know, so that's what it feels like. That they did, regardless of what you think about them and their season, they did just well enough to stay in pace, to not fall too far behind Arsenal. Now, did they fall a little too far? Maybe. And that's why Arsenal let themselves down, because I do not think a lot of people will criticize them for losing to Man City, but losing to FC Bournemouth when you're pushing for a Premier League title, if you want the definition of the feeling of an Arsenal fan, go and watch the Overlaps podcast. I think from this week or last week, since today is already Monday, 20th of April, and watch. There's a clip that has been trending of Ian Wright talking about this moment, letting themselves down. Go watch that moment. Go watch that clip. That's how you'll feel. Perhaps that's what you need to comprehend, what they must be going through, the emotions. But then you ask yourself, if the fans are going through that, how about the manager that is in charge of this? How about the players that are in this? Because they are the guys in the actual fight. If it feels this bad for the fans, how about those players? Because trust me, they want it. They may be the guys squandering it, but it doesn't mean they don't want it. And I remember Mikel Arteta watching him in the post-match press conference in the Bournemouth game. You could read it of him in his body language that he was trying as much as he could to summon the courage, to have the composure to speak about that game. Otherwise, if he had the option, he would have simply said, I have nothing to say. Perhaps stayed away from the media if he had the option, but perhaps not. The bottle job is complete. That's TT Vision. Indeed, it is complete. Anything between now and then would have to be a miracle for Arsenal to win it, because they've put it in Manchester City's hands. And if you want to understand that Manchester City know that they have it in their hands, go watch those post-match celebrations. Because for them, this is the day that they've won the Premier League title. Not because it's done, but they know. And I said this, I've been saying this the entire week, that this game was going to be about psychological warfare. What it means psychologically or mentally for the winning team and the losing team. And I said, if any side had settled for a draw, it was simply to delay the inevitable. Whereas a point would have felt advantageous more to the Arsenal side, and they would have gladly taken it. But it would have simply been the feeling of delaying the inevitable. Because then again, going from 9 points to 4 points and eventually just 1 point, it's not the kind of confidence that you need. So TT Vision says Arteta out. Indeed, the drum rolls are going to point that direction. Anyways, Aston Villa managed to beat up against Sunderland by 4 goals to 3. Dramatic game. 2 first half goals from Ollie Watkins gave Aston Villa the 2-1 lead. Ollie Watkins in the 2nd minute and the 36th minute, but in between there, Rig had scored to cancel out Aston Villa's lead to make it 1-1, and then Morgan Rogers in the 46th minute made it 3-1, and then Hume in the 86th minute and Isidore in the 87th minute scored to make it 3-3. You can imagine. But fortunately for Aston Villa, they found a way to fight back, and Tammy Abraham's 93rd minute goal, or into the 3rd minute of stoppage time, decided the tie. 4-3. Aston Villa had to work for it, but they equally know that they cannot behave in the manner that they behaved as such today, having a 3-1 lead and then squandering it to put it 3-3, because on another given day, that would have been 2 drop points. And of what great significance that would have been to the rest to finish in the top 5. So with that victory, they stay in touch with Manchester United at 58 points for both teams. With Man United having a better goal difference, which is 13. That's 7 more than Aston Villa. So very, very important, very, very significant. So yeah, that was the other result from today. And like I said, Nottingham Forest won away 4-1. So that summed up Super Sunday. Match day 33 wraps up tomorrow. Today or tomorrow, depending on what time zone you're in, when Crystal Palace take on West Ham United at 10 p.m. East African time. I will be back tomorrow, of course, for the 11 p.m. broadcast. So perhaps, and also in the morning for the 9 a.m. broadcast. Ceteris paribus, provided all factors are kept constant, we'll be back and have an engagement about that, and see what the implications will be. Of course, Crystal Palace, after after their triumph, after going through to the semi-finals of the UEFA Conference League, in which they're going to be facing Shakhtar Donetsk. Remember, they lost away in Italy by 2 goals to 1, but because they had won the first leg by 3 goals to 0, they went through 4-2 on aggregate score. They were so happy. Oliver Glasner gave them a day off while away in a foreign country, and they went out and had a blast. I mean, isn't that the beauty of life? You have to celebrate the moment. So I do not know what sort of state they will be in coming into this particular fixture. Does that in a way give West Ham an advantage? Because if West Ham win that one, it will be a huge, huge win for them as well in the wake of fighting against relegation. Remember, Tottenham Hotspur are breathing down their necks. They may have not won yesterday, but they earned a point. And that point put them at 31 points. And they are simply 1 point behind West Ham, who have that game in hand, which is tomorrow against Crystal Palace. It's a London derby. It's not easy. So we'll see how Oliver Glasner takes on Nuno Espirito Santo on the other side. So then, for purposes of recap, yesterday, Man United beat Chelsea by 2-0. It was a 2-2 draw between Tottenham Hotspur and Brighton. Tottenham Hotspur squandering that one because they had a 2-1 lead and they conceded very, very late on in the game. And Newcastle also conceded late in the game as they lost to Bournemouth by 2-1, while Leeds put 3 past Wolverhampton Wanderers, and then the earlier game had been a goalless draw. So let me see out of this how many we got right. I think the draw between Brentford and Fulham, not a perfect score prediction. I'd gone for a 1-1 draw, but it was nonetheless a draw. I'd gone for a 3-1 victory for Leeds United, but it was 3-0. I'd gone for a 1-1 draw between Newcastle and AFC Bournemouth. I considered that one. I think I'd gone for was it a 1-1 or a 2-2 draw between Spurs and Brighton? I do not remember the exact prediction, but I remember it was a draw. Then Man United Chelsea, I'd gone for Chelsea to win by 2-1. They let me down. Aston Villa, I'd gone for them to win by 2-1 against Sunderland. It was 4-3. Liverpool Everton, I'd gone for a 1-1 draw. Liverpool have won it 2-1. Nottingham Forest against Burnley, I'd gone for a 2-0 victory for Nottingham Forest. Manchester City Arsenal, I'd gone for a 1-1 draw, but I said it was more wishful than it was objective. If you go back to the channel, and there is a shot on the channel where I say I do not see a world where Arsenal beat Manchester City at the Etihad Stadium. So, and I was saying that they were going to lose. So in that clip, basically, I die on that hill. So it is what it is. So Crystal Palace West Ham, let's get to the game let's get to the preview tomorrow morning, and I'll give you my thoughts on that one. Otherwise, it's been 1 hour and 2 minutes. Allow me to call it a wrap. It's very late on for me, 42 minutes past midnight, and yeah. TT Vision, thank you so much. Mweshgwa Joshua, it's been a pleasure. Rio Dandy, always a pleasure. Pedri left us because he did not want us to talk about more of the Arsenal game and Man City game. I don't know what else he wanted us to talk about because there was no Spanish La Liga this weekend. There was only the Copa del Rey, which Atletico de Madrid lost on post-match penalties. I think it was 4-3 on post-match penalties that preceded a 2-2 draw. Julian Alvarez's moment there, hitting the woodwork, sent what's his name, Diego Simeone into the grass. The same way you had Mikel Arteta on the ground when Kai Havertz's chance does not go in. I mean, that's as agonizing as things come. But it's very, very unfortunate. It's very, very unfortunate the manner in which they lost. But nonetheless, they lost a 4-3 on post-match penalties because their first 2 penalties they missed. That goalkeeper from Real Sociedad, what's his name? Yunal Moreiro was simply good. So was simply good. There's no way about it. And that's football. You win some, you lose others. So allow me to wish you a blessed night, and let's link up again tomorrow. Bye-bye for now. Stay blessed.